Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, The Boss's Way. In today's video we're going to mix it up a wee bit and we're going to feature a deck from 2004. This deck is Walrein and Walrein is a pretty bad deck, so just getting that out there straight away. But it's a deck I've spent far too much time kind of trying to make it even semi-decent, and I'd say I failed to do that. But because I spent so much time in it, because you know there's a lot of 04 decks out there, different videos if you check out Jay Hornog's channel, but he doesn't have Walrein. So I thought, maybe, you know what, I'll start with Walrein. And I might start with maybe some of the less good, shall we say, decks, but that I still have either put time into or enjoy. So yeah, so we'll have a look at Walrein and where I'm currently at with the deck. So you'll notice that my Dunsparce in the deck are World Championship cards, and there's a few cards in the deck that are World Championship cards, and really and truly I wouldn't usually have World Championship cards in my main deck, but it's because Walrein's such a bad deck that I just don't feel the need to fork out money for real Dunsparce, although they wouldn't even it was not that expensive, although era specific maybe rare candy would be, and I'd rather have, I suppose, era specific World Championship cards than non-era specific reprints. Although having said that, the Dunsparce reprint that came out, was it Celestial Storm, or maybe it wasn't that, but recently enough, is fine. That's grand, like, you know. But yeah, just because the deck is just so mediocre even, that it doesn't bug me, because I very rarely pick it up to play it anymore after kind of giving up on it. Okay, so that's enough about that. So in 2004, Dunsparce is your main setup. Strike and run, search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench and shuffle your deck afterwards. Most decks in the format play 4 of these, just to get set up, and we play 4 here in our build of Walrein. We play 4 copies of Spheal, has Freezing Breath. So flip a coin. If heads, defending Pokemon are paralysed, and if tails, the defending Pokemon is asleep. So it's a pretty useful attack for stalling. And I mean, it does only have 40 hit points, but usually, you know, most people will want to lead with Dunsparce, so your Spheal shouldn't really ever be in too much danger at the start of the match, because people are wanting to strike and run. And in fairness, so are we. But if we are in a scenario where we lead with Spheal, it's not too bad. Playing 2 copies of Celio. That super icy wind attack. It does 10 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness resistance. Skull Bash 3 for 50 is okay. So the more I played the deck, the more I've been thinking that is Celio a better card than Walrein itself? And we'll get on to Walrein in a second, but the fact that you can do 10 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon is actually quite useful. It's kind of like very similar to Exploud in the format, and Exploud has that attack that does 10 to everything, and you just keep spamming that to put things into range, and then, you know, you drop maybe a TM Rock to take knockouts. And Celio more or less can do that with less hit points, but it's quicker because it's a stage 1 and Explode's a stage 2. So I've even thought about running heavier Celio lines and kind of using Celio as your main attacker and having Walrein as the backup or whatever, but again, it only has 70 hit points, so that's the issue there with it. But Celio is really useful, and anytime you have to evolve through Celio rather than rare candy isn't a bad thing, and spreading 10 damage around the board, getting even 2 or 3 of these off is really, really good, especially if you can drop Celio down early when your opponent's setting up. Skull Bash 350, flat 50s is reasonable. You'll see Walrein only does 50 as well, and has a mediocre effect with it. So really and truly, Celio's not bad when compared to Walrein. We play 2 copies of that. So the main star, shall we say, of the deck, Walrein. We play 4 copies of Walrein here. So Walrein's Poke Power Crush Draw. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may reveal the top card of your deck, and if that card is a basic energy card, attach it to one of your Pokemon. If not, put the card back on your deck, and this can't be used if Walrein is affected by a special condition. So the pros to this is that it can be any basic energy, so that facilitates us running different types, water and fire in this case. So that's nice. Downside being it's the top of your deck, so you may or may not have an energy there. I mean, we do play 4 copies of Oracle, which we'll talk about later on, which kind of lets you stack your deck, so you can fix it so that your next card is an energy. Your next 2 cards are energy if you've more than one Walrein up or on the field. So there's ways around it. Sometimes you're just crush drawing and hoping your next card is an energy to attack. But when it does get going, you can put a lot of energy on the board, which is great. The only downside is Walrein's attack doesn't actually do a whole pile. So for 50, 2 waters and a colourless, and remember Celio does 52. So Walrein's attack does 50 but has an effect. Flip a coin. If heads, each defending Pokemon can't attack during your opponent's next turn. And why it says each is because back in this format there was an option of playing kind of a doubles game, which I haven't actually tried. But for standard matches, it's 1-on-1 in the active, so flip a coin of heads, the defending Pokemon can't attack. I mean, there's just so many ways around this, like a switch will get you out of this. Not being able to attack is, I suppose, it's kind of, it's annoying to some degree, but this card would be so much better if it read, the defending Pokemon's now paralysed. At least you have a solid status condition there, but, it just says it can't attack and it's on a coin flip. So it's not great. And you're only doing 50 damage for a stage 2, which is pretty bad. So I've tried Tcgone cards, like there's an Azumarill from 2004 that, lets you basically, for each water energy on it, you flip a coin, and for each heads it does 30 times each head. So I've played with it a few times, and you could stack maybe 3 or 4 energies on it, and you could be doing up to 120, which helps Walrein's damage output. But then they're all on coin flips, so you could flip them all. I've had games where I've played a heavy Azumarill line, and stacked 4 energies up on it and got like 1 tailed, and you're only doing 30 damage. So the problem there being your damage, it does more, it can do more damage output than Walrein, but then it's so inconsistent that I just found, on average, it just lets you down more than often. So yeah, so I kind of reverted away from Azumarill and have Growlithe and Arcanine in the deck, and we'll talk about that. But that's basically your quote-unquote star of the show here, doing 50 damage and on a coin flip, maybe stopping your opponent from attacking. So not great. Okay, so now we play, I have a 2-2 Growlithe Arcanine line. And so Growlithe has the ability Fire Veil. If Growlithe is your active Pokemon is damaged by an opponent's attack, even if it's knocked out, the defending Pokemon is now burned, which is nice. And then 2 for 20 on Flare. You don't really ever want to be attacking with Growlithe, but we can. But it isn't something that you're aiming to do. Then Arcanine, Fire Veil again, same idea as same exact ability as Growlithe actually. That if it gets attacked, and even if it's knocked out, the opponent's active that attacked it is burned. Then burn up for fire and 2 colourless. Flip a coin of tails. Discard all fire energy attached to Arcanine for 60. So Arcanine does 10 more than Walrein at stage 1. If you flip tails, you lose that fire, but you only need 1 fire to get the energy off. The other 2 can be water, and Walrein will accelerate fire and water to Arcanine, providing the energies at the top of the deck with Crush Draw. So the main reason why Arcanine's in the deck, 10 extra damage, is okay, but it's not amazing. But the real reason he's in the deck is for getting weakness on cards like Blossom. Blossom's healing is a huge problem for us here, and it just absolutely goes through Walrein. Basically, a Blossom card will more or less single-handedly beat Walrein. So Arcanine here is your answer to Blossom. in the deck. I suppose, is there any other decent grass cards, decks in the meta that's weak to fire? There's Mucky X, but I'm not sure if Mucky X is weak to fire because it's that poison type, so I think it's weak to psychic. You've Skeptile as well, it'd be weak to fire, so you'd be doing double damage on that for weakness 120, although it wouldn't be knocking out Skeptile EX, but it would be knocking out the non-EX version. So it does have some more use outside of Blossom, but Blossom is fairly popular, especially in the better decks in the format, so Arcanine is a good answer to that. And even if you're not against it, you can load it up on Arcanine relatively quick if you're getting your crush draws off to provide an alternate attacker as well, and the retreat cost of 1 isn't bad. There was times when I was thinking of maybe going 1-1 Arcanine, 1-1 Azumarill to have the option of dealing with Blossoms and Grass Pokemon, although Walrein is weak to Metal, but it's just Blossom itself that's the issue. But Azumarill was just so inconsistent with the coin flips, and then you're running 2 1-1 lines, and it's kind of like maybe I decided, you're probably just better off running the 2-2 of the Arcanine and keeping it more consistent, or running the 2-2 of the Azumarill and keeping that more consistent. The only problem is when you get Arcanine up, at least it's doing 60 damage, whereas you get Azumarill up and it mightn't do anything. So that's I suppose the trade-off there. We play Feebas here, so it does have Ascension. Search a deck for a card that evolves from Feebas and put it on Feebas, which can be nice to speed things up. And then we have 1 copy of Milotic, so we don't really attack with Milotic at all. It's basically just for the ability Healing Shower. Once during your turn, when you play Milotic from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you remove all damage counters from all of your Pokemon and all of your opponent's Pokemon, excluding Pokemon EX. So again, it's that idea of kind of making Walrein more tankier. You only drop Milotic down when it's benefiting you more than your opponent, to heal things off. Your Walreins and your Arcanines, and maybe, if you had Cecilios out. Wave Splash 2 for 30 is bad. There's another 2 ways about it. 2 water and 2 colorless for Distortion Wave. Before doing damage, remove 3 damage counters from the defending Pokemon. So realistically, you're only doing 50 there. It's just bad. So you just don't attack with it. It's really for the healing. Into supporters now, we play Copycat. This is Copycat from, pretty sure, Heart Gold Soul Silver era, 2010. I kind of just ran out of the 04 era Copycats, but I still like this Copycat. I have a few 2010 decks, and I like it's still retro, and for me it's still cool, so I don't mind it too much. And I like the art as well. So we play 4 copies of Copycat, shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw the same number of cards as your opponent. So again, it can be really good when your opponent has big hand sizes, which can happen quite a lot with Energy Draw Delcatty, and there is other cards like, especially you can punish your opponent if they have a big kind of Stephen's Advice turn, and ends their turn with a huge hand. You can kind of capitalize on that yourself the following turn. Then there's some turns when they have a really small hand and Copycat is not that useful for you. Oracle. So Oracle lets you basically, with a few different languages here. Here's the English one. So choose 2 cards from your deck and shuffle the rest of your deck. Put the chosen cards to the top of your deck. So basically pick out any 2 cards you want in your deck and put them in whatever order you want at the top. So this is what we would usually use for stacking energies to the top of the deck to get our crush draws off. It's a 4-of, so it's very important. Obviously, you can pick other cards as well. That's if they're situationally better. So yeah, there are 4 copies of Oracle there, and again, 04 has that rule, supporter rule, as we know in Standard, where you only play 1 supporter per turn. Stephen's Advice. So we play 4 copies of Stephen's Advice, possibly our best draw supporter. Definitely, actually, our best draw supporter in the format. Draw a number of cards up to the number of your opponent's Pokemon in play. If you have 7 or more cards. If you have more than 7 cards, including this one in your hand, you can't play this card. So you make sure when you're playing Stephen that you have a max of 6 cards in your hand, and you can drop Stephen down. And if your opponent has a full bench and an active, then you're talking about picking up 6 cards there. So you can see how that can be really useful for getting to your deck and coming up with big hand sizes. But then your opponent can kind of not punish you for it, but capitalize on it the following turn by dropping a copycat if you haven't worn your big hand size down from after playing Stephen. So 4 copies of Stephen. We have 4 copies of Rare Candy just to get into Walrein a bit quicker. And the quicker we can get sheer coals off while your opponent's not's fully set up, the better chance we have of actually winning the match and making sheer coals go a bit further than it usually would. We play 2 copies of Ancient Technical Machine Rock. For that stone generator attack. So when you attach this onto a Pokemon, it acts as an additional attack for that Pokemon. But it has to be an evolved Pokemon that you attach it to. So you could attach it to Celio, Walrein, Arcanine, technically Milotic as well. And as long as you have any kind of energy on it at all, you can use Stone Generator, and Stone Generator reads if your opponent has any evolved Pokemon in play, remove the highest stage card from each of them and put the cards back into his or her hand. So the idea being, if you have, say, 60, 70 damage done on a Pokemon that's evolved, and the Pokemon underneath it only has 60 maybe or 70 hit points, then when you play TM Rock, you de-evolve that Pokemon back into its original stage. So say for instance, if it was, just for argument's sake, say Celio here has 40 hit points, and then Spheal has 40 and Celio is 70. So say if you had 50 damage on a Celio and you drop your opponent's Celio, and you drop TM Rock and attach it to your Dunsparce, well, you couldn't attach it to Dunsparce, but your evolved active Pokemon, and you attack with Stone Generator, then it de-evolves Celio by putting it back into your opponent's hand, and then it becomes Spheal, and Spheal had carries on the 50 damage that Celio had, and obviously it knocks it out. So it's kind of a good way of taking cheap knockouts like that, and that works on all of your opponent's evolved Pokemon. So that's why Celio here getting some super icy wind spread damage off isn't a bad option. Desert Ruin, so we play 2 copies of Desert Ruin. Anytime between turns, each player puts 1 damage counter on his or her EX Pokemon. Just kind of brings EX Pokemon's HP down to a lower amount for us to get through them, and we don't play any EXs in the deck, so the Desert Ruins doesn't harm us at all. TV Reporter, draw 3 cards, then discard any 1 card from your hand. Can be good just for getting a little bit more draw power. Can be useful at times, so I play 1 copy of that in the deck. Then we have Town Volunteers. So basically this is your recovery card where you can pick 5 Pokemon, Basic Evolution or Basic Energy from your discard pile, put them into your deck and shuffle the deck. So it kind of just brings back pieces that you need. Our energy count, we're currently playing 4 fire energy for our Arcanines, although Arcanine really only needs 1 fire energy. So you could cut that back, and if you needed room for other things, maybe cut it back to a 2 count technically, but that's obviously as low as you'd want it to go, or you could really bring it. 3 count is reasonable too. Water energy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we're playing quite a lot of water energy, and if you include the 4 with fire, then you're up to over 20, 22. So, and again, that's the idea being there that like increases your chances of a water or a fire energy sitting on the top of your deck for crush draw to actually work. So that's the deck there, guys. Look, listen, you can try it on TCG1. Yeah, it's definitely not great. It's probably one of the worst decks in the format. I have gotten wins with it before. When there's times when you can run Blaziken, which is a pretty good deck, if not it's definitely one of the best decks in the format, close, just because of the weakness if you can get set up quick enough. I've beaten things like Wailord fairly consistently with the deck as well, although Wailord isn't a great deck either. So that's the kind of area that you're kind of dealing with this deck, kind of lower tier, but it's still fun. I suppose the decks like this, when you do get the win, it means a little bit more as well. But yeah, I suppose other things you could consider is that Azumarill I was talking about that does the 30 damage, has an attack as well that lets you attach as many water energy from your hand onto it. And then the next turn, then you can swing with that big attack that lets you flip a coin and does 30 damage for each heads. that you get, and the amount of coins that you flip is based on the amount of energy. So you could load up a load of water from its first attack, and then next turn use its second attack, and it's called Max Bubble. But there's just no guarantee that you're going to do any damage because you're relying on coin flips. Perhaps maybe like a Strength Charm would be decent as well for an extra 10 damage. It pushes Sheer Cold up to 60, but then Arcanine does that for you anyway with Burn Up if you need to swing for 60. So yeah, this is kind of where I'm at with the deck. I'm not sure if I'm going to put much more time into it. Because I just don't think it can go any further. I think the deck's as good as it can be. Walrein EX wasn't a thing in 2004, so if it had to come out a bit earlier, you'd have more options and the deck might be a bit better. But yeah, that's just where it is. So guys, thanks very much. This has been The Boss's Way, and I'll catch you next time.